Here we go. It is 12:06 and a good afternoon. May I be the first to say. Hope everybody's having a good Monday so far. October 28, 2024. Man, we got a lot going on this week, huh? It's Halloween week. That's nice. We've got a little election to win later on. 1st of November, November 5th to be more precise. We've got lots of things happening this week to tell you about. We've lots of conversations to get into. We've got a week and a day to go before it is officially Election Day, and I'm as excited as I can be. My name is Matt Murphy, and conveniently, this is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We have a cast of characters that you'll hear from time to time. One of those is Bell K. We call him Headless Bell because he chooses not to participate on the television side of things. There are warrants and whatnot. A lot of backstory there that we won't go into right now. Bell, what I will do on the radio side of things is ask you to communicate with the audience briefly. Tell everyone how your weekend went as I turn the lights down because they're very hot.
My weekend was just fine. I went to see a comedy show. It was awesome.
I want to thank you, Bell, because you're a pro. And Bell K recognized that he did not have a lot to say, so let's say it slower.
Yes. Well, actually, it was more like I realized how much of this do I want to say. Err on the side of caution.
You saw a comedy show?
Yeah, I went to Zanies to see Neil Bargatze's father, Stephen.
Nate Bargatze's father, Stephen.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Nate Bargatze.
No, we knew who you meant. Good?
Yeah, actually, he was. He opens for Nate regularly. So I had seen video of him before, but he's kind of got... He's completely different than Nate. He's got this kind of combo stand-up magic thing that he does, where Nate's just straight stand-up.
Mm-hmm. I can't see from behind your left shoulder.
He is not in there at the moment.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll check in with Weaves coming up in just a second. Trump calls him Weaves. Did you hear that on Nashville's Morning News? I meant, Bell, if I had not a couple of obligations today, I would have told you to make sure to lift that. If Dan Mandis is listening, let me know where that audio is. Dan Mandis... You know, Donald Trump, I don't know if y'all heard, went on Joe Rogan. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anybody heard that. A 3-hour, as you predicted. You said you go on Joe Rogan, they tell you it's going to be 3 hours. Yep. And Joe Rogan lived up to that. 3 hours of conversation with Joe Rogan.
And you know Trump loved every second of it because he just loves talking about himself.
Well, yeah. I mean, and it I'll tell you what. I mean, 3 hours is a long time. There's no question 3 hours is a long time. But
just to give people an idea, when you normally interview somebody, on an average, I would say it's 15, 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And this is 3 hours. One
of the reasons that I want to get our podcast studio up and running is so that I have a podcast idea called The Only Thing I Know About You with Matt Murphy. And the design is to not necessarily interview famous people, but to interview people that are interesting. For example, one of my first guests on this podcast would be and will be Mr. Jimmy. More on him in a minute. From Shelbyville, I met Mr. Jimmy over the weekend, and it was absolutely fabulous. But it gives you that opportunity to, and Joe Rogan is the master. One of the reasons that he is the most downloaded podcast in the United States of America and in the world is that he understands to build a relationship and to have a really truly in-depth and good conversation, you have to build trust. And he understands that that takes time. And so he spends, if you listen to his interviews, and he didn't do it so much with Trump because he already knew Trump, but if he's interviewing a new person, he spends 30 minutes building and trust and bonding with his interview subject. And then he is able to flesh out and start talking about issues that might be a little touchier or on the touchier side. But we'll have plenty of reflection on the Joe Rogan interview with Donald Trump over the week, or I guess it was last Friday that happened. But hope everybody had a good weekend. Bell had a good weekend at the comedy show. I had a couple of things going on this weekend I'll tell you about. I think Ken Weaver's back in the newsroom, and I'm very interested. Ken Weaver, how was your weekend?
It was a great weekend, Brother Matt. Every weekend's a good weekend now because I actually have a weekend.
Yeah? What'd you do this weekend?
Well, I crocheted a beautiful oven mitt. And it took me all day long Saturday.
On Saturday?
Yeah. Couldn't watch any football because I was so into the crochet.
You were into the... Oh, that's good, Ken. I mean, I'm glad that you've gotten a hobby.
Yeah, and then right before the Titans game on Sunday, I broke out my paper mache kit, and I made a dinosaur.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, the Titans one step closer to that number 1 draft pick. I mean, we got that going. But I'm learning how to be a good NFL fan. I'm learning how to live in an NFL city.
Yeah.
And the great thing about the NFL, unlike college, because college, I'm not bringing up any particular team, Ken.
Okay.
But in college football, if your team sucks, if you can't move the ball on offense and your defense is constant, I'm not saying any particular team in the SEC is this way. But if you can't figure it out, well, you just have to wait till next year.
Yeah, I mean, if you go into a game not understanding that the goal is to score more points than the other team, you're probably in the wrong business.
That's probably so. But in an NFL,
you know what our coach did?
What'd he do? Oh, here we go.
It was fourth.
Oh, no.
It was 4th and 2.
I'm sorry I did this to
in
you,
the
Weaver.
fourth quarter against a very high-powered Ole Miss team.
Yes.
It's 4th and 2.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We call a timeout, Brother Matt.
Why'd you?
We called a timeout, and then we punted.
Well, you got to make sure you got the right personnel on the field.
It's like, so how much are we paying our coach?
A
I
lot.
mean, hell, I can make decisions like that. Hell, let's just punt it on 3rd down.
We can Bobby Boucher this thing and just kneel on offense and give it back to the other team.
I don't know, Coach. That team looks like the devil.
But foosball is the devil.
That foosball's a devil.
Bobby Boucher.
Devil, Bobby Boucher. Good grief. Timeout. All right, boys. Let's punt.
Right. Hey, what do y'all want to do?
I say we punt.
Anybody got any ideas? Remember in The Water Boy when Henry Winkler, the coach, they huddle up and they're in the locker room. Does anybody have any idea? Anybody at all? It's like, anybody? That's his pep talk.
That movie is so good, man.
Anybody have any ideas? Anybody? Y'all remember that time that Bobby Boucher?
Y'all can pay me for your jerseys.
That's a good one too. That's a little sad. Have you seen that Saturday Night Live?
I have not.
Nate Bargatze was on Saturday Night Live again this season, and it was like one of those locker room skits that they do from time to time.
Like a halftime
It's
thing.
like a halftime thing, and the team's coming in, and everybody's beat down because they're losing. And Nate Bargatze's playing the coach, and he comes in, and the assistant coach is trying to build him up, and we can go get him. All right, coach, what you got? Hey, some of you, I just couldn't help but notice some of you guys haven't paid me for your jerseys yet. So if you could just get me that $20. He's like, would you give me Venmo or just? And he did. It's fun.
One of the players says, "What's your Venmo?" And he goes, "I don't know what that is."
I don't know what that is. But it's like a check.
Fellas, a little house cleaning here.
Yeah, right,
Some of us haven't paid for our jerseys yet. Let's make sure we get that money in before you leave today.
Well, I'm glad you had a good weekend, Ken.
It was. Other than that, it was a great weekend.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
Yeah, exactly.
Georgia whooped up on off this weekend, and we got the cocktail party this week. And I'm very excited because I have my annual visit with my good buddy Dale Jackson, who's a talk show host in Huntsville and a Florida Gator fan.
Oh, all right.
And so we have gone to several cocktail parties together in Jacksonville. I told him that I would never go to another one because Georgia always lost every time we went.
Yeah.
But we do get together during the cocktail party and go down to Valentine's on Broadway, and we're going to watch the game Saturday. So if y'all want to come by and see us, that's where we'll be.
Place called Valentine.
Well, Valentine's on Broadway. They, you can find one thing I love about living in Nashville, and we're not a sports show, so we ain't talking about sports. But
we ain't.
But one thing I love about living in a city of this size and there's so many different people from so many different parts of the country and the world that live here, that on any given, there is a bar, Ken, that plays Oklahoma Sooner football on Saturdays. Now,
really?
I expect this week this year it's a very depressing place on Saturdays, and they probably have some really good beer specials.
Yeah.
But no, you can find the Notre Dame bar, you can find the Alabama bar, you can find a place that caters to fan bases. And Valentine's on Broadway, plays the Georgia football games every Saturday. And Georgia fans know that. And so if you want to go be around Georgia fans, you go to Valor. Bell went last year. You had a good time last year, Bell.
Well, I was going to say, technically, you have to have the game on the screen to consider it being played.
You want me to tell this story? I got to tell you this story, Weaver.
All right, let's hear it.
All right, so, these locations where fans congregate, they expect to have their ball game on, and they come in, and it's a way to ensure that you're going to have a packed house because you got the Georgia fan base, you got the Bama fan base, or you've got, pick your school.
Right.
And so all the Georgia fans congregate. It's cocktail party weekend, and they get the game going on all the TVs on all the floors. And what was it, Bell? Halfway through the first quarter, something like that.
Yeah, around that. Early enough to be a real pain.
A real pain in the butt. So all of the cable goes out, the satellite goes out, whatever they're using, DirecTV. I don't know what they're using, Kim, but it goes out.
Oh, boy.
Well, and it's not that it goes out because that's fine. I mean, I get it. I mean, crap happens. But we're in the main room. There's probably, what, Bell, 100 people in there?
Oh,
maybe
more than that.
150 people in there. And there's two other floors, Ken, and all of the TVs are out. And it's not that it went out. It's nobody said anything. Like, they just, none of the bar, like, and I actually said to Bell, I'm like, this wouldn't annoy me so much if the bartender just said, hey, guys, we know it's a problem. We're working on it.
Right.
We're sorry. We're going to get it fixed.
We're going to get it. It was none of that. And so finally, I pulled up YouTube TV on my phone. And I stood in the corner and held up my phone. I started just watching it ourselves, and then a couple of people gathered around us, and so I raised my phone in the air, my little iPhone, and like 40 people gathered around my iPhone, and we were watching the game on my iPhone.
And he starts doing play-by-play with no mic. He's just yelling at the top of his voice.
Second down and 8, Georgia's got the ball. That kind of thing. So whatever. Any port in a storm, y'all. I mean, it's football.
That's right. That's right.
But the point about NFL cities, Ken, is that you reach a point where your fandom turns. And I feel like Tennessee Titans fans have reached that point.
Yeah.
Where we're no longer and I'm not saying that we don't want anything but the best for the team. But I feel like we're no longer rooting for victories anymore. We're rooting for draft position.
Yeah.
Right?
I believe so. I think you're right.
I mean, so I want the best for the team, and it's not as if I wouldn't root on a victory for my newly beloved Tennessee Titans. But if they lost every game for the rest of the year, would we really be that sad? I mean,
what's it matter now?
I mean, what are we playing for except for draft position next year?
Right. I mean, that's kind of what I think it's gotten to.
I mean, I think so. And it ain't even November, y'all.
No. It's not.
Oh, my gosh, it's not even November. What in the world? Oh, there was about a half a quarter there that I thought we'd hang in with the Detroit Lions. I mean, it's 14-14. It was. What was the final score? 52-14.
52-14.
Oh boy! And as they say, that is sports on the talk station. It's 19 minutes after the hour. Listen, it is a week and a day to go. I am very, very interested if my phone start working back in here. I'm very interested in figuring out where you are in your mind space. I'm going to try to remind you. I'm going to reset everywhere we are, moving through this week and getting to next week. I want to reset that because I think it's important that we understand where we came from and where we are right now. And what it means that the mainstream media is going all in with Kamala Harris. What does it mean that Kamala Harris is her final argument to the American people why she should be president of the United States of America is Donald Trump is Hitler? And I remember a time when the Democrats were wagging their fingers at conservatives and libertarians and Republicans alike about our wild rhetoric and how it was dangerous. I remember a time when they wagged their finger at us after January 6th and told us that Donald Trump telling people to peacefully protest was in some way inciting an insurrection. I'm old enough to remember when Donald Trump almost had his head blown off in Butler, Pennsylvania. Yet now they're openly referring to him as Hitler and a fascist and saying he must be stopped. Well, what the hell do they mean?
Oh, we just mean the vote, Matt. And we just mean the vote.
It's like they don't even recognize that there were two assassination attempts against this guy. So we're going to dive into that. In the 1 o'clock hour, I will welcome good friend of the show, Jeff Poor. He is in town. I was on his show a little earlier today. He has a show in Mobile, Alabama. He's a talk radio host down in Mobile. Beautiful country down there in Alabama. And he is up in Nashville. He's got in-laws in Nashville. And I was on his show earlier today, and he's going to stop by at 1 o'clock. He's editor-in-chief of 1819 News, which is a great publication in Alabama. And he also hosts his own show, The Jeff Poor Show, in Mobile. We'll talk with him about where he is on the election and what he thinks will happen next Tuesday. It's 21 after the hour. Today is Locks for Trump Day 240. For 240 full days, I've been growing out my hair in support and anticipation of a new president-elect of the United States of America. And I'll remind you, Trump wins, and these bad boys are going all the way to Inauguration Day. It is episode 681, and it's 8 days to go before the presidential election. On this episode 681, you can consume it on the radio. You can consume it on streaming. Anywhere that you stream music or news or information or podcast, you can stream our radio station. Please do that. Download our app and take us wherever you go. You can also find us on Supertalk TV. Hello, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Supertalk TV episode 681 is entitled
Matt Murphy and the last 8 days of the 2024 campaign. Bring your conspiracy theories to the dayp trader.
Oh, I would love that. Oh, and that's a little callback to the fact that I was on Brian's show Friday.
Again.
Totally
True. Ignoring your audience.
I love you guys. I love every single one of you. I also like talking to the drive people, but I like you. I like you better. Just so y'all know. It's 22 after the hour on Supertalk. You know, you often hear, and maybe you feel like when it becomes fall into winter, it's no longer bug season. And it's true that you have less mosquitoes, less fleas, less ticks in the exterior of your home trying to get in and affect your life. But you know what you do have? You have invasive pests that want to get inside of your home to take advantage of the warmth and take advantage of the food. And if you have an issue with those invasive pests, or if you don't have a pest control company right now, it's a great time to sign up for US Pest. If you're thinking about having family and friends over for the Thanksgiving holiday or for the Christmas holiday, and you're concerned because maybe you've seen a water bug, call them water bugs at your own peril. They're roaches is what they are, and you need to get rid of them with U.S. Pest. J.K. and Erica Brister want to help you the holiday season and all throughout the year. So let's give them a call or let's go online at uspest.com. They'll talk to you about their 100% money-back guarantees, their full-service pest control, their termite protection, and their crawl-space service. A telephone call is in order, 590-1260. That's 615-590-1260 for our friends at U.S. Pest.
Hey everybody, Dan Mandis with Super Talk 99.7 WTN and Nashville's Morning News. Right now, we are bringing results for our clients using both our radio and digital assets. 2025 is going to be a huge year, not only here in Tennessee, but of course, across America. If you want to jump on board, again, we're offering great incentives. Find us online, 997WTN.com, and let's talk.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Is your concrete in need of repair? Maybe your sidewalk shifting, or your driveway is cracking and sinking, or your porch steps have moved. Hello, friends. It's Matt Murphy, and I was talking earlier about the holidays coming up, and obviously Halloween's this week, Thanksgiving right around the corner, Christmas before you know it. If you have friends and family coming over, shifting concrete can be a dangerous situation. Trip hazards around your home can cause a danger for your fellow man and your friend group. Well, I know what to do. Call United Structural Systems. Ask them about their incredible polyurethane foam injection. The Polylift system is incredible. I've seen it work with my own eyes. I did this in Birmingham for my home in Birmingham. You've heard about USS for a long time. It's the same company that's provided incredible foundation repair and waterproofing to Middle Tennessee since 1994. They can fix your sunken or settling concrete easily. USS uses this polyurethane foam injection. It's incredible, folks. It lifts and repairs your sinking concrete in a matter of minutes. The lifted concrete can be walked on immediately. As a matter of fact, I was standing on my concrete as it was being raised into its proper position with this incredible foam. It can be driven on in 30 minutes. Don't go through the long, expensive process of replacing. It's time to repair with USS. 615-488-7855, 488-7855, or USSTN.com.
Got a crash, and it's not in a good place. It's 40 westbound, the off-ramp to go westbound on 24 downtown. Actually, that's not a crash. That's a stalled tractor trailer. So still backing stuff up, even though it's not a crash. Guess what's back at McDonald's? I'll tell you at 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Is it the McRib? Is it the McRib?
I'm not telling you right now, Brother Murphy. We got to get that TSL.
Well, it's not the Shamrock Shake. It's too late in the year for that.
No, that's next year. It's not that, and maybe it's the McRib.
Do they really make a Shamrock Shake?
Oh, Weaver.
He's got to be kidding.
Come on, buddy.
I did not know that.
Yeah, hey, if you don't know that they make a Shamrock Shake, I want your Fat Boy card today after the show.
You're not getting my Fat Boy card. I've only got one more hole to punch, and I get something free.
I did finally see an ad for the chicken Big Mac.
Yeah, I saw one too.
It looks great on TV.
Yeah.
It's probably better in the picture, isn't it?
You know, there's a great. Have y'all ever seen the movie? I mean, and I think this way every time I eat fast food. Every time I eat fast food, I think of this restaurant scene. The movie is a very depressing movie called Falling Down with Michael Douglas.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a great movie.
It's a great movie.
I feel that every day.
A great movie.
Yes.
If you've never seen it, if you want to watch a man slowly slide, oh my goodness! I mean,
off his cracker.
Right off his cracker. That is the movie to watch.
Didn't they film that on I-24?
I think right between Murfreesboro and Nash. I think
they did.
I think that's right. There are some scenes that you would not know the difference. The one where the guy tries to steal his briefcase, that's a great scene. Yeah. Great scene. And the restaurant scene is the best, where he wants breakfast, and then it's like a minute after breakfast, so they won't serve him breakfast. And then he wants, so fine, I'll have lunch. And at some point, I forget when, he pulls out his Uzi.
Yeah.
And he's
holding the briefcase.
He's holding everybody hostage.
Yeah.
And he just wants his food.
That's all he wanted.
He just wants food. And they bring him his food, his order, and they give it to him, and everybody's nervous. And then he opens it up to eat it. And he was like, this is what I'm talking about right here. He said, look at that picture up there. It looks delicious. It looks so good. It looks 3 inches thick. And then he picks up the hamburger. He said, look at this squashed thing. So good.
And it's so true.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm sure you did see the chicken Big Mac. I'm sure it looked great. And then, you get the real deal and you're not so impressed. All right, we're going to remember what the stages have been leading up to the point that we're at in this election. I'm curious to get your thoughts about where we are. So we'll open up the phone line, 615-737-9986. 615-737-WWTN, either through phone or super text. Plus, several of you have asked, did I get a chance to see Mr. Jimmy over the weekend? And the answer to that is yes. I'll tell you about how that visit went. It's 30 after the hour on Super Talk.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and that is a stalled tractor trailer holding you up if you're westbound 40 to try to go westbound on 24 downtown. The off-ramp right lane is blocked. Got the full forecast in 5 minutes. Well, the Quarter Pounder returning to the hundreds of McDonald's locations where it was pulled last week. Jim Ryan says you won't have to ask your server to hold the onions.
McDonald's has ruled out beef patties as the source of an E. coli outbreak that has sickened at least 75 people and left one dead. The focus instead has been on the raw slivered onions that come on the burger. In the 900 restaurants that receive slivered onions from Taylor Farms, Quarter Pounders will be sold without them.
Well, it looks like 2024 could end on a positive economic note, according to the latest survey from NABE. That's the National Association for Business Economics. Business Conditions Survey claims to find that companies are not passing the buck on to you, the consumer, when it comes to inflation. The chief economist at CoreLogic, Selma Hepp, speaking on behalf of NABE, telling ABC News they're just not seeing it.
More respondents are reporting that their firms are not passing higher prices to consumers. That's really good news for future inflation pressures.
Hepp added the participants also reported they were not waiting on the November presidential election to make major decisions on investments, a sign they're not worried about who is in the White House. And if you're trying to plan a Thanksgiving feast without breaking the bank, there are ways you can save. Retailers duking it out early this year to get a slice of your spending on Thanksgiving dinner. I wish I'd have written that. That was Elizabeth Schulze who did.
When you're trying to compare these deals, one helpful tip is to look at the unit price. This is the number you're going to see on the shelf next to that big sticker price in smaller print. So for a turkey, look at the price per pound. And Target actually has the lowest offering there at 79 cents. Overall, Target's deal might be best if you're hosting a smaller gathering, so say 4 to 6 people. But for groups of 8 or more, or if you're just super hungry, Walmart and Aldi might get you more bang for your buck with a bigger variety of trimmings on that table.
That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and Men of Valor is on my mind. I love my friends at Men of Valor and love telling you about them. If you've not been over to the website, go to movministry.com. That's movministry.com. 90% of the men that go into prisons, into our prison systems, come out at some time or another. And sadly, this statistic is real. About half of those men that return within 3 years will return to prison, that is, in 3 years, unless they are discipled to, unless they are given some semblance of hope, unless they understand that there is a better way for them to become good and productive members of society in a way that truly will save their souls on this earth and save their lives in the next. The power of God and his people is real, and Men of Valor utilizes that power of God for the betterment of the state of Tennessee from a financial standpoint and every way else. They need job partners. They need Bible study teachers and mentors that can disciple men every single day. And we invite you to go over to Men of Valor at movministry.com. That's movministry.com. And if you don't mind, tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the wonderful organization Men of Valor. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you until 3. Brian Wilson back at the house from 3 until 7 today. Live and local conversation starting with Dan Mandis in the morning. Nashville's Morning News. Chris Hand, yours truly, and the aforementioned Mr. Wilson. 8 days to go. 8 days to go. It feels like we've been dealing with this presidential. I mean, that's the way that it goes, right? I mean, even if you don't believe that we were dealing with it in 2021, we were. But in a lot of ways, this election cycle truly began in the aftermath of the red wave that did not come. I'm reminded of that red wave, and that's where I want to start right now. And if you want to get in here, 615-737-9986, either via the telephone lines or the membersnutrition.com super text line. So I got to Nashville in December of 2021. And we were going full bore by spring of 2022. And I recall in the summer of 2022, Dan Mandis, Brian Wilson, myself, we're talking about how excited we were about the red wave that was sure to come in November of that year. And I recall looking at the polling data, and I recall looking at the numbers, crunching the numbers, and feeling like we're picking up 30 or 35 seats in the House of Representatives. Well, we did win a majority in the House of Representatives, but it was razor thin. We also expected to pick up 4 or 5 seats in the Senate. That never materialized. A Senate majority never materialized. And there's a lot of analysis and expert opinion as to why that was, but the primary reason, in my opinion, is that Donald Trump was not on the ballot. And as much as Donald Trump attempted to help those that were, there was still a tremendous sense that something had been taken from us in 2020. And I'm not here to necessarily relitigate 2020, although I welcome those conversations. I'll talk about anything you want to talk about, as a matter of fact. But I do believe that a lot of people, because Trump was not on the ballot, felt like they could stay home. Across the country, not necessarily in the state of Tennessee. We did pretty well in the state of Tennessee, picking up a Republican seat, as a matter of fact, because of redistricting. Andy Ogles eventually winning District 5 that was seated with a Cooper in it. Jim or John, I always get them confused. Was it Jim? It's Jim.
Yeah, Jim.
John was the mayor?
John was the mayor.
Okay, good. I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that because I would transpose them all the time. Anyway, so there are many different theories as to why the red wave in 2022 did not materialize. But the fact of the matter is, regardless of why it happened, it happened. And it created a dynamic by which we've lived in very perilous times over the last 2 years. A razor-thin majority in the House means that any 3 or 4 Republicans who veer off the reservation create a dynamic by which you can't get anything done over there. And it really doesn't matter because you send it over to the Senate and Kamala Harris is the tie-breaking vote. You're not going to get anything sensible done over there. And you got a Democrat in the White House. So we thought in 2022 that we would see a lot of Americans rising up, going to the polls, and beginning the process of taking their country back. And in some ways, they did that. But this is the real deal. This is the time. I was telling someone earlier, well, it was a former partner of mine, Andrea Lindenberg. I was talking with her on the phone before I came on air today. And we were discussing politics, and she's back in television news. She did talk radio for about 5 years, and she's now back in television news, and she was lamenting the fact, I think I can tell this story. She was lamenting the fact that she can't really talk politics because she is a conservative, and she is surrounded in her newsroom by a bunch of liberals, and she said they're all glum. They've all got their heads down and their lips pooched out. And I said, why is that? And she said, I think they know what's coming. I think they know what's coming. But I don't talk politics around there, so we're talking politics. And I recall the reaction after 2020 and the frustration and the consternation that people had. And I related to her. I was like, you know, for the almost 25 years that I've been doing this, longer than some, not as long as others, every presidential election, we always say the same thing. I bet you can guess what we say. Every time there's a presidential election, what do we say? The most important election of our lifetime. Don't we? Don't we have a tendency of doing that? Everyone. When I was 7 years old in 1980, I remember hearing that the election between Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter, and I don't know why I remember this, but John Anderson was the libertarian. I think it was John Anderson because I think it was like the singer swinging. Not that John Anderson, a different one. But I believe he was the libertarian candidate that year. That was the most important election of our lifetime. 84, very important. We're on the right track. Let's keep going. Landslide. 88, let's keep the momentum. We wish Reagan could run again. But, you know, George H.W. Bush, a reasonable, maybe a poor, but a reasonable facsimile, turned out he wasn't. 92, most important election of our lifetime. First election I ever voted in. And the last time that I voted for a Democrat. I voted for Bill Clinton in 1992. I did not make that mistake in 1996. Although, you know, it doesn't shame me to say this. It's just the truth. You know what I did in 1996? I didn't vote. Because I knew that the Democrats weren't my cup of tea. I knew that I couldn't support their big government, big spending policies. But Bob Dole, come on, guys. And then on and on. I won't go through each one of them, but each one of them were told this, and I recall it in 2016, and I recall it in 2020. So what am I supposed to say now? Bless you. There might be one more coming. Pardon me, I had to sneeze. Thank you, Belle. It reminds me of the boy who cried wolf. Y'all remember the story, right? The boy who cried wolf. There's a wolf, he's playing around, everybody comes running, there's no wolf. Eventually, there's a wolf. And eventually nobody comes anymore because there have been so many false alarms. What we don't want to do is to overinflate the importance of this election. But at the same time, I truly believe that it is an inflection point in the United States of America. When we talk about making America great again, when Donald Trump speaks of this at Madison Square Garden before an absolutely packed house, what a dramatic and impactful moment that was in American history. And meantime, all the liberals are screaming about Nazis and Adolf Hitler or whatever. It's just nonsense. It's baloney. Absolute nonsense. But it's not about necessarily Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. It's not necessarily about the individuals that are in play here. And it's not necessarily about you or me. But it is very much about if and when, America will lose its way as so many nations and so many standards of democracy have done in the past. When will we lose our way in terms of our belief that above all else, that man has rights. And those rights are given to us by a God or a higher being or a power greater than ourselves. Not by a government, but by a higher force than thee. And that no government, nor any other man has the ability to supersede those God-given rights that we have been granted. Our founding fathers understood that in order to create a great country, we had to create a country that recognized powers beyond itself. We had to create a country that recognized that the rights of the individual supersede the power of the governing body, so long as no others are being deprived of their rights and their liberties. This is not to say that we have ever been perfect. This is not to say that we have ever truly lived up to that dynamic principle. But throughout the course of American history, we have at very least strived for it. Obviously, there have been bumps along the way. There have been huge chasms along the way in the form of slavery, which was common worldwide during the time that the United States of America practiced it. Something that we obviously recognize as evil in our modern times. It's always been about forming not a perfect union, but what? A more perfect union focused on the individual liberties of you and of me and of Ken and of Bell, every single one of us. And if we maintain that focus, we maintain a focus that furthers the American experiment. When we begin believing that the good of the many outweighs the liberties of the few, it's a great slogan, and liberals love to use it, and it sounds great. Everyone loves that scene in Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, where Leonard Nimoy, Spock, sacrifices himself, and Captain Kirk says, "Why? Why did you do it?" And he said, "The good of the many outweighs the good of the needs of the one or the few." Well, that's all about personal sacrifice. That's a completely different thing. But when you apply that, when you overlay that in the public dynamic, what you end up with denying individuals their individual liberties and rights because the mob demands it. And that's what Kamala Harris is all about. I'm not trying to get too philosophical when I talk about this subject. But I do believe that we have a fork in the road. That we are either going to allow the natural way of things to continue, the natural flow of how all of this goes flows toward socialism. It flows toward centralized government. It flows toward government takeover of individual businesses and business practices. It flows toward government limiting your rights based on what they consider their responsibility to protect the will of the many and not the liberties of the few. That's what this election is about. We can boil it down to individual issues and individual ideologies and individual cases till the cows come home. The fork in the road is about whether or not you want to continue to see a more centralized form of government that eventually will lead to socialism, which always leads to totalitarianism. Or do you value liberty? If you vote for Kamala Harris, you're either voting for socialism or you don't know that you're voting for socialism. If you vote for Donald Trump, I believe you're voting for liberty and a continuation of the American experiment. That's where we are with 8 days to go. It's the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk. Friends, we've got a big party coming up 8 days from now. It's the election night watch party in Lebanon. at the Wilson County Fairgrounds in the Big Ag Center. And with that election night watch party comes a lot of our wonderful friends and sponsors of the radio show, like Glock Store. Now, let me tell you what Glock Store is doing. They did this during our VP watch party, and it's been pretty cool. And so they're cranking it up again, and they're doing it again. Man, they give away a lot of Glocks over there. And they're giving away a Glock 19 as the grand prize of the big raffle event that Glock Store is conducting at our election night watch party. You don't have to be there to win because they'll announce the winners day after. 3 big winners from the raffle. Third prize, one of those incredible tactical hydration mugs that's made from gun-grade material. I have one of those in my home. Absolutely love it. Second prize, 3 session ranges at the Shoot 270 rooms, Never Lanes rooms at the Glock Store. And grand prize, I'm looking at this Glock right now, and it's pretty special. It's a customized Trump Glock. It's a Glock 19, the image of Donald on one side, the 45th and soon-to-be 47th president of the United States of America with Trump on one side. On the other side, the American flag and the bald eagle symbolizing the liberties and freedoms that we enjoy in the United States of America. That's all being given away by the one and only Glock Store. Find out more at glockstore.com. That's glockstore.com, and we'll see you at our election night watch party. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. And, you know, everybody wants to know what they can do in addition to voting, in addition to the fight that we're in with regard to our election in a week and a day. How can we kind of take our country back in a different way? I have a way. It's Coin, the conservative credit card. Now, instead of funneling millions of dollars like you do, if you're using certain cards that take that money that they make from interest rates and they give to liberal or woke causes, Coin advances a conservative value and a conservative agenda and gives to conservative charity. Earn cash back while fighting back. Apply now at coin.com. Spell it correctly, COIGN.com. Coin.com. Terms apply. Go to coin.com/disclosures for full details.
Early voting tally, ballot box fires. McDonald's says it's serving up the quarter pounder again. Recession worries survey and early deals if you're planning Thanksgiving dinner coming up at 1 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, Ken Weaver, you know, I don't know, did they tell you that you got mentioned in the Trump-Joe Rogan deal?
I heard that this morning.
Belle, I want you to look for it during the Weaver newscast because I'm told that it's been put on a hotkey. Donald Trump mentioning he called him Weaves. You know Trump is all in when he calls our man Weaves. But it's my understanding that we've got that audio somewhere, I've been told. We'll also introduce the audience to Jeff Poore, who's editor-in-chief of 1819 News. He also hosts a radio show down in Mobile, Alabama, which he was kind enough to allow me on earlier today. We've got him talking about Trump, the election that is, what's going on in Alabama, and all things in between. It's the Matt Murphy Show. 2 more hours to go on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
One o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and TDOT showing a big backup westbound at 40. If you're trying to go westbound 24 downtown, it looks like a stalled tractor trailer is blocking the ramp, the right lane of the ramp there, and it is backed up all the way to the 40-24 split right before you get to the airport. Election 2024, as of Friday, 1.45 million Tennesseans have voted early, at least 140,400 of those in Davidson County. And when compared to 2020, Davidson County's running 20% lower turnout. DeKalb and Murray counties, on the other hand, seeing more people at the polls with turnout up around 30%. Meanwhile, in the Pacific Northwest, Alex Stone says investigators looking into 2 ballot box fires in Oregon and Washington State.
It's unclear if the motive was to destroy the ballots inside the 2 drop boxes, and police say there is no indication the 2 were even connected. But the first fire was at around 3:30 in the morning in Portland. A fire inside of a ballot drop box destroyed 3 ballots. A fire suppressant in that box prevented it from being worse. Then at around 6:30 in the morning in Vancouver, Washington, a second fire. That one destroyed hundreds of ballots. That area is home to a heated congressional race, but it's unclear if that had anything to do with it.
Now that the beef has officially been ruled out as the source of the E. coli and the onions from a Colorado facility of California-based Taylor Farms was the culprit, McDonald's says it's bringing back the quarter pounder in those areas that lost it last week. But in those areas that were impacted by E. coli, quarter pounders won't have slivered onions on them for the time being. And McDonald's says it will no longer source onions from that Colorado Springs processing plant. Recession worries appear to be fading, according to the latest survey from NABE. That's the National Association for Business Economics. Its business conditions survey report claims to have found companies had a positive outlook overall. Chief economist at CoreLogic, speaking on behalf of NABE, telling ABC News the participants felt confident enough to make major decisions on investments.
Your respondents are expecting recession, so the probability of recession, almost half of them, or about half of them, put the probability of a recession at 25% or lower.
Participating companies added they're also still looking to fill positions with qualified workers. And if you're trying to plan a Thanksgiving feast without breaking the bank, there are ways you can save. Retailers duking it out early this year to get a slice of your spending on Thanksgiving dinner, says Elizabeth Schultze.
Target is announcing it will offer a Thanksgiving meal that will serve 4 people for $20. That's $5 less than last year. This deal features 7 items, including an up to 10-pound turkey, green beans, stuffing, mixed potatoes, and gravies.
That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hello, friends. It's Matt Murphy for Savory Spice. Now, remember, there are two great locations to visit Savory Spice. One's in L&L Market on Charlotte Pike, and the other in Franklin, just off the square next to Gray's Pharmacy. Why Savory Spice? The spices are simply superior. They are of better quality. They are fresher than what you're getting at the local grocery, at the discount store, and they are better for your food. You up your spice game, and you up your food game automatically. Those two things go hand in hand. And they have all of the specialty spices that you're looking for that you can't find at your local grocery. Plus, they've got seasonal stuff. So something for the tailgate. I mean, a lot of folks still tailgating. They've got your spice for that. If you're thinking about chili on these cool winter evenings, getting ready for football in the cool winter, they can get you ready at Savory Spice. Plus, pumpkin pie spice galore at Savory Spice. And remember, pumpkin pie spice has no pumpkin in it. It's the spices that you put in the pumpkin that make it delicious. Savory Spice, the one and only. You smell it before you see it, and the smells are so good. Take my word for it. Go buy Savory Spice today. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you. Up your food game by upping your spice game. Up your spice game at Savory Spice. It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show, hour number 2, beginning right now. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Happy Monday to you. Hope your October 28th is going well so far. Good afternoon, one and all. We've lots to get into next 2 hours, primarily discussing the presidential election in 8 days, but there are other matters going on to include the transit tax. I'll tell you where we are on that and the feelers that I've set out on that. Plus, an update on Mr. Jimmy. We told you we were going to see Mr. Jimmy last week. Mr. Jimmy, loyal caller to the Matt Murphy Show, good friend of the show. A FOTS, if you will, FOTS. And we'll tell you about our visit with Mr. Jimmy coming up in just a couple of minutes as well on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Don't forget, you can get your questions or calls in, 615-737-9986, always. And the text line is up and running as well. On the text line, 4702. Did you see this, Bell? Rumor is, our big election night watch at the Ag Center. Huge room. We've already sold out of the VIP tickets. Everything else is free. There'll be food available for purchase, drink available for purchase. Very excited about this entire experience. A huge room. Like you could fit 800-900 people in that room. I don't know that we'll fill it up. Maybe so. But for you VIP folks, you're getting a goodie bag in addition to a number of other, treats and whatnot. Plus, your food is taken care of. Your drink is taken care of. Now, those tickets are sold out. There's no more buying those tickets.
And if you have one of those tickets, one lucky winner will walk away with Matt's foot stank.
Well, that's right. I mean, have I promised that? Did I make that a promise, or did I just throw it out there? Did I promise?
Yes, you did. You have to give them away.
See, I'm being told
because we could have potentially sold tickets based on the fact that.
Well, let's find out.
Yeah.
But I have some Trump shoes that I kind of pseudo-promised to give away. Bell says that the promise was laid down in stone. One way or the other, I'll be wearing those shoes, and I may or may not give them away. I'll bring additional shoes for that purpose, my gold Trumps. So 4702 says, rumor has it the 99.7 goodie bag will include a lock of your hair.
Oh, that's actually a good idea. I like that idea. We get the haircut going, and
these are just
we give it away to the. It's like that episode of the Partridge Family where Danny was selling locks of what's his
locks of what?
The older brothers. Hair.
I can't look. I was a Brady Bunch guy. I was never really a Partridge Family guy. I know that. I didn't like watching the Partridge Family because I had weird feelings about the mother in the Partridge Family, and it confused me. I did not feel that way about Carol Brady, so I was all good with the Brady Bunch. Does that make sense to everyone?
I wanted to kiss them both.
At the same time.
or whatever. Anyway, but that is a rumor. I would never give away my hair for free.
Keith Partridge. That's who it was.
Okay, sure. Let's stop the fun and frivolity and welcome in our guest. His name is Jeff Poor. He works with FM Talk 106.5 in Mobile, Alabama. He's a great talk show host down there. He was kind enough to invite me on his show today as he is in Nashville. He also is the editor-in-chief of 1819 News. If you've never been to 1819 News, I mean, I know they talk a lot of Alabama politics, but they also talk about the United States of America and beyond, and it's a great publication to go to, 1819 News. Jeff Poor joins us in studio. Hello, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Man, it's good to have you. Thanks for having me today. It was a lot of fun catching up.
Yeah, we hadn't done this in a while, have we?
I know. And it was but it was like it's just like an old pair of shoes.
Just some Birmingham days.
Yeah, I know when you would stop by in Beeham because
just randomly.
But you're all you've got you're one of these guys with like 18 different jobs. You work at 1819. You got I didn't even mention Breitbart.
Yeah.
Was Breitbart kind of the first? I mean, no, Daily Caller was before Breitbart, wasn't it?
So I started. I lived in Washington D.C. I moved there straight from. I had a job in Mobile. I was going to college down there, and I worked for a nonprofit for 3 years. Brent Bozell, the Media Research Center, Newsbusters. I did that for 3 years. Then Tucker started the Daily Caller. Worked there for 3 years to the day, and I got to be there with Tucker. He is in charge. He is my boss. We're having editorial meetings, and the thing about Tucker. Those monologues you see that's him. I mean, he is authentically Tucker. And then Breitbart, when Steve Bannon took it over, poached all of Tucker's good employees. I like to think of myself as a good employee. And he got my wife, too. And we worked at Breitbart for a while. She left to go practice law. I never left. I'm sort of a contributing editor there. There's a lot of work involved, but yeah, I'm still there.
And you and we'll talk about 1819 in a moment, but I want to focus in on that because that's probably a question that a lot of listeners have, and you touched on it. Tucker is just he's kind of a solar system now, and things orbit around him. But you caught him at a time where he was just building the Caller. He was just kind of building his brand, and you say. I mean, you just said it. The guy that you saw behind the scenes is the same guy that you saw on Fox News.
He had just gotten fired by MSNBC. And Fox News picked him up, and he was a fill-in host for Fox and Friends on the weekends. Mm-hmm. And then slowly over time, then ultimately he's a primetime host, right? But he had decided, well, I need to go find something else to do, and he launched a Daily Caller. And his friend Neil Patel used to work for Cheney during the Bush administration, partnered up on it. And it was a cool time to be in D.C. then. It was the sort of middle of Obama Tea Party wave. People are really, really, motivated, activated. And what I was, and I'm still in for Breitbart, I monitored cable news. I was a media reporter. So this newspaper reporter goes and leaves this job and goes to another job. And, I tried, and that's a big deal in D.C. It doesn't sound like a big deal out here, but people are really interested in that stuff. And that was sort of my role there.
Perspective oftentimes becomes reality. And I say that by, the old saying, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. I preface this question with that. Is Tucker more influential now, or did he lose a certain level of influence? I don't blame him for leaving Fox News. I mean, you can say fired, whatever. I don't know the circumstances, but obviously there were conditions of his employment that he was not willing to continue his relationship with Fox News, whether they ended it or he ended it. Is he better off now than he was then? I have a hard time, and I just walk in an orbit where I don't see him as much.
Right.
There are some people, you know.
And it's just in his side of the ideological prism, I think right of center, conservative talkers need to be kind of legacy media somewhat because it's just an older demographic.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was far more influential when he had the Fox platform. And I've talked to him a few times since he was fired by Fox. He doesn't know why. There's speculation it was part of the Dominion settlement.
But he doesn't know that.
He doesn't know that. And there's a lot
That's
of
interesting.
So he'll never be back on cable TV again unless it's like a Newsmax or something. I mean, he was CNN forever, MSNBC for a couple of years, and Fox. And once you part ways, they don't really invite you back.
Does the average listener or the average viewer think that there's more? The only time that I've ever been offered a directive at Cumulus, and I've been with Cumulus for almost 18 years, and it wasn't really a directive. It was a word of caution, was the day of January 6th, that some of our bosses came out and said, hey, y'all need to take this really, really careful.
Right.
Be real careful here. What's going on in D.C. and in the coming days, because it's a really delicate situation. I understand that. But in my 25 years of doing talk radio, I've never been told from a content perspective, you may go here, you can't go there. I mean, the FCC tells us we can't throw F-bombs around. But I feel like there's a perception that Tucker is free to be his own man, that we are free to be our own selves away from that type of network legacy media.
Well, Fox, I think, was very micromanaging in some regards.
Yeah.
Now, there's a different – you got to understand the primetime shows get to play by their own rules a little bit than the rest of the programming on Fox because of the way their contracts are done and ownership and all of this. But you do have to – there are some just third rails you don't touch with Fox News. And this has always been the case. I've known people to come and go from Fox News. I still know people there. They do – lay some pretty standard ground rules that that are forbidden. But you're right. Now that he's away from that, he's a little more free. But I think what you saw was authentically Tucker when he was on Fox.
Yeah, he seemed pretty free on Fox News to do what he wanted to do. But who knows what led to his firing, one way or the other. A super texter wants to know. Was your guest is Jeff Poor, 1819 News and 106.5 in Mobile, Alabama. Did he work with Tucker when Tucker was on the Bubba the Love Sponge show?
That came after I left, yeah. But he's been on that show often. He goes on these shows. Like I never understand why he goes like Alex Jones and places like that, but he does that. He just comes on my show about once a year.
Right.
And,
sure.
He came to our wedding. We got married here in Nashville at the Belmead Plantation, and he had Fox and Friends that morning, flew to our wedding, and they had Fox and Friends that next morning on Sunday and flew back.
That's pretty. I mean, that's a good gig if you could get it. I mean, that's a good way to live.
Like he came here for our wedding, but he's just that kind of guy. Like
right.
But leaving there he's the best boss I ever had by far was Tucker Carlson.
Do you ever see him get mad?
Oh yeah.
Okay, but still fair.
Yeah, it's kind of funny about it. Yeah. But he was just always. I mean, like my job interview was as such. We talked a little bit what I would do, and then he asked me my thoughts on sodomy.
Oh, okay.
And
like just in general?
Yeah, and I what do you say to that?
Like he said, what are your thoughts on sodomy?
So, Jeff Poor, it was like, what do you think of the media? What do you think of Rachel Maddow? We're friends or whatever, and then at the very end. So tell me one thing, Jeff Poor. What do you think of sodomy?
So that's just a how is he going to react to this question, right?
I was like,
you know how I'd answer that question? It depends on the price.
Well, that's a good response.
You know what I mean?
Why don't you tell me your thoughts first, Tucker, is what I said.
Which road are we going down? I don't understand what we're doing here, but whatever. Jeff Poor's our guest. So before we go to break, give me your, what is 8 days to go? Where are you at? I mean, you feel good. I mean, I know you're a conservative guy. I know that you offer your thoughts every day for 3 hours a day. I mean, are you feeling good about the
better than I did at 16 and 20?
Yeah,
much better. And you see the path. You see the pathway. Pennsylvania feels like it's breaking for Trump. If you just look at that, the battleground states. I don't know if I'm not a believer that New Hampshire, the last poll within the margin of error, right? But still for Harris, you see just the trend seems to be sliding in that direction. And you look at the Harris campaign and everything they've done to date. What makes anybody think? Just look at this. Pretend you are a Harris supporter. What have you seen out of that campaign to make you think that they can right this ship in the last 8 days?
I know it's a great point.
I don't know what it would be.
Well, and I'm looking at some of the early voting and some of the areas. Well, I'll give you an example. I saw it was either Ken Weaver or Joan Jones. I heard a report that early vote, and maybe it was a local news channel, one way or the other. Early voting in Nashville, Tennessee, in Davidson County, is down from what it was in 2020. And in the rest of the state, it's up from what it was in 2020. Well, that tells me a lot of what I need to know. That the red communities are getting out en masse and they're voting. They're taking the advice that we need to vote early to go ahead and bank those votes. And maybe you don't see an enthusiasm in the blue communities.
And just think about that. Like you and I spend just hours upon hours talking on every little issue that happens in this country. But what it's going to come down to is this referendum. None of that is really going to matter, like all these Nazi references or whatever. What it's going to come down to is it's a referendum on the status quo, and just the enthusiasm is red hot, it seems like, on the conservative side and kind of mellow on the blue side.
Jeff Poor's with us. He's been with the Daily Caller. He is with Breitbart. He is with 1819 News and has his own show down in Mobile, Alabama. We'll continue the conversation. We'll talk about the level of rhetoric that has ramped up over the last several weeks amongst the Democrats in a moment. It's 20 after the hour. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk. All right, so guys, if you're just not feeling it, look, I don't try to get into your personal business. I really don't. But this is a personal conversation that we're having about your energy level and how that can translate into romantic intimacy with your significant other. Because if you noticed a decrease in that intimacy, it could be T levels. If it's T levels, you need to get to the Tennessee Men's Clinic to find out what they can do to assist you. Tennessee Men's Clinic is the one-stop shop for all things men's health care. Their qualified urologist will go over your tip to stern, gentlemen, and they will come away with an analysis of what you need to get you back right as rain. Whether it's bedroom activity or going to the gym or doing outside labor, if you're not feeling it and you're, just saying, oh, it's middle age or I'm not getting enough sleep at night. Well, do you know? Let's get some confidence in this diagnosis. Let's get with the Tennessee Men's Clinic. They can help. Since 2014, Evan Bass and his team have been assisting men just like you. No shame in this game, men. Let's get it done. Call today for a scheduled appointment. 2 locations. One's in Midtown. The other is in Franklin. The number, 615-208-9090. 208-9090 or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com.
A deadly mistake while taking pictures. I'll tell you about it at 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you, Ken Weaver. About 5 minutes away from that newscast. Jeff Poor's with us. He is the editor-in-chief of 1819 News. He has also been with he's still with Breitbart, been with Daily Caller, and hosts his own show at 106.5 in Mobile. He's in town visiting the in-laws, and we invited him to stop by before he goes out to the airport, and appreciate him being by. So, the messaging behind the Harris campaign, it's why they didn't want her to begin with, right? Hold on just a second. Bell, help me out. Thank you.
It's amateur hour. It really is. I mean, you talked about this on my show earlier with you. It's just like this is a impromptu presidential campaign. And, when you run for president, you start right after the midterms. You do exploratory committees. You go fundraise. You have a fundraising stump speech. You have a campaign stump speech. You go through people on your campaign staff. You have this attrition, and you figure out once you get past the primaries and into the general election, you have the right people, you have the right chemistry, you have the right messaging, you focus grouped it, you've checked all these boxes. She's the impromptu candidate, never had the opportunity to do any of that. And that's why the messaging is so bad with her. I mean, and some of it is, I know you're not supposed to say this, but I think she's a little just lazy. I don't understand why you don't have a boilerplate response to how are you going to be different from the Biden presidency, or what about your flip flop on fracking? Why can't you just have a response that will satisfy people? Why haven't you thought about this? And it turns into a word salad. She looks like ill prepared, and you're running for the highest office in the land. Like if you and I had this opportunity, your one shot to be leader of the free world, and this is the best effort you put forth, it just doesn't. It seems like she doesn't really want to be president sometimes.
The lazy factor came out in abundance during and in the aftermath of the Anderson Cooper interview, right? Anderson Cooper is not her enemy. That's a friendly form.
Yes.
How hard is it? Jeff, you and I could sit down, anybody. I mean, you don't have to be immersed in politics. I think any Tennessean listening to us right now could sit down and figure out 5 or 6 or 7 of the questions that she's going to get that night and come up with a really good answer for them prior to and just kind of memorize the bullet points. She didn't seem to do that. How do you not know that they're going to ask you about what you're going to do differently?
I would suspect that they gave her the questions ahead of time even.
And you don't. So she's one of these people that they walk into a room and you can tell that they think they're smarter than you, but you know they're not. Mm-hmm. And so she thinks she can wing it, and she clearly cannot wing it. And even in the midst of some of the answers that she gives, she has this air about her that she's giving this profound response. Like, I guarantee you, when she first started that saying that thing, do you have it on the wall, the unburdened by what has been, what can be unburdened by what has been? When she first came up with this, you can tell the first 1,000 times she said that, she thought it was the most profound thing in the world. And eventually people started rolling their eyes. And eventually I think she was told, just stop. But
that's just it. Like this stuff isn't working, but you continue to do it. There's the trial and error here. But this is the thing, Matt. She ran into the same situation when she ran in 2020. She had Biden on the ropes at the first debate, remember? And she comes out, catapults to the lead, and does nothing with it. This is a replay of 2020. What you're seeing, guys, she has successfully figured out how to do this twice. Gets that sugar high from the Biden, transfer of the nomination, and has a lead, and squanders it because she just didn't do the homework.
When you say a replay of 2020, it makes our listeners itchy. It makes most Americans itchy that are voting for Trump because they are convinced that there were shenanigans in 2020. I want to talk to you about that after the news. And tell me if you think that those types of dynamics exist. I don't believe it because I don't think that they can hide in the fog of COVID, which is what they did. Whatever happened, I don't believe machines were flipped, but I do believe that there was vote harvesting and a lot of things that were a little underhanded that went on. I'm curious your thoughts on that. We got him for another segment. He's Jeff Poor. We'll talk to you about 1819 News, too, and tell everybody what you're doing down there, because let me tell you, the 1819 News represents, I think, the future of journalism from state to state and from region to region. And I think you guys are doing a great job down there. It's 1:30. It's time for Ken Weaver's Newscast on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast in 5 minutes. Right now, election 2024. Vice President Harris in Michigan today, making 3 stops in that battleground state. Here's some of what she had to say about former President Trump before getting on the plane.
He is focused and actually fixated on his grievances, on himself, and on dividing our country.
Yeah, former President Trump today holds 2 events in Georgia. He's going to be speaking to a gathering of faith leaders, and then he'll hold an evening rally in Atlanta. Right now in Nashville, Channel 4 says 2 people have been arrested for the armed robbery at Dubai Jewelry on Nolensville Pike last week. 34-year-old Orlando Hernandez and 38-year-old Melanie Garcia were arrested in Miami. Police say they recovered jewelry, cash, and a wig. Their accomplice is still on the run. Hurricane Helene recovery update. One of the people helping out in East Tennessee is Adam Smith. He's a former Army Green Beret who organized Savage Freedoms, which he says has moved over 1.8 million pounds of supplies, including hay and feed for agriculture and medicine into the region. He says the biggest need right now is money to go directly into the hands of the local residents and the local communities for construction and reconstruction. For more information, you can go to savagefreedoms.com. And this next story out of Kansas. A woman was killed after backing into an airplane propeller while taking pictures. 37-year-old Amanda Gallagher taking photos at the Air Capital drop zone of people getting on and off planes when she backed into an active airplane propeller in Wichita Falls. And Wichita, that is, not Falls, just Wichita. Gallagher was described as kind, adventurous, creative, and a beautiful person inside and out. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
We've been telling you about this incredible opportunity with Coin. Probably the number one question that I get from listeners: how can I do more? Is there anything else I can do besides going out and voting next week? Well, you can get into the conservative fight by knowing where your dollars are going. Most credit cards are funneling millions of dollars to the left, but now you have a choice. It is Coin, America's conservative credit card. You earn cash back while fighting the liberal agenda. Apply now at coin.com. Spell it correctly now. Listen up, COIGN.com. That's coin.com, COIGN.com. Terms apply. Go to coin.com/disclosures for full details. Super Talk 99.7 WTN 136. Thank you for being with us. About halfway home this Monday edition. We'll hand off to the drive at 3 o'clock this afternoon. My name is Matt Murphy, and this, conveniently, is the Matt Murphy Radio Show. Jeff Porin with us for one more segment. Talking national politics, as you might expect, with 8 days to go before the presidential election. We'll get to your calls momentarily. I want to veer off and just let folks know what you're doing over at 1819 News. I mean, I know you do the talk thing 3 hours a day, and, you know, very good at it down in Mobile, but you're also editor-in-chief. I don't know where you come up with the time, Jeff. Maybe I'm living my life wrong, but you got like 4 different jobs, and one of them, your primary job, is editor-in-chief of 1819 News. Tell us a little about the publication.
Well, you see what's going on in like conservative media now, and you know the Daily Wire, Breitbart. You go down the list, and what the vision was why aren't we doing that at a more local level? Why aren't we? Because especially in a state like Alabama, the voters, the public is very conservative. It skews very red, and the legacy media outlets in that state, AL.com and others, I mean, they're wildly left wing. They're serving an audience that doesn't exist.
They present themselves as if they hate the state that they're in.
Yeah. I mean, it's always like, this is what Alabama is doing wrong. Those dumb rednecks in Alabama, over and over and over and over again. And it's offensive. And people say, well, where else are we going to go? Well, they're the only show in town. And there's other sites, but they're, all these states are kind of weird. You'll see these news sites, and they're sponsored by like the Chamber of Commerce or whatever, or some interest, and they serve a purpose, and that's fine. But the 1819 vision was a little different in that we want to build a brand, a company that's geared more toward your average Alabamian and their sensibilities about not just politics, but culture as well. And you see all these shifts into culture. We're being told that we had to offer these kinds of library books, that we must accept this this pronoun culture, and then this stuff is not cool with a lot of people who live in Alabama who are just they want to pay their taxes or whatever. They want to know what's going on. So trying to fill that void, and that's the whole 1819 concept. It's to bring it down locally and cover the state house and the bigger cities and where things matter, because you're not going to get like coverage of the Alabama legislature from Breitbart. I mean, you're just not, right? So where do you go for that? And that stuff is important.
Well, and the commentary and the role that we fill on talk radio is one thing, and you do that as well at 1819 with opinion pieces and commentary pieces, and you have a podcast, division.
Right.
But I think people also just want to feel like they're getting told the news without bias. Like the real story without someone putting their thumb on the scale. I don't believe for a second that #NeverCNN doesn't vet what stories they're going to tell based on who it might look good for down the road or who it might hurt down the road. I mean, and if you're putting your thumb on a news story, not a commentary piece, but on a news story already, then I don't know that I'm getting the real deal.
Or it's bias by omission. Something big happens, and we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to downplay that.
Look how quickly the Trump assassination deal left.
Yeah.
I mean, they felt like they had to do it for a week or so, but once Kamala became the nominee, that's off the front page.
We're going to do 20 segments about a Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden and just how it's the Madison Square Garden that Trump's rally's at. And we're going to draw these unnecessary, unfounded correlations between the two. And it's stuff like that goes on, but it goes on locally as well.
Sure.
They're just not as good at it, or they would have moved up to the major leagues. It's kind of a minor league thing they got going on, but there still has to be a counter to that. And I think building a company based on that, there's a demand for it. People want that stuff, and that's sort of where 1819 fills that void.
Well, and I'll tell you, I wrote, for those that didn't know me before I came to Nashville, I wrote briefly for 1819 News, and I was blessed to be able to write a few commentary pieces for the publication right before you got there. And I knew that I was in the right place. I submitted an editorial, and it was directly – now, Kay Ivey is our Republican governor in Alabama. And she was beloved by so many conservatives, won her reelection campaign by like 65%. And I wrote a piece saying Kay Ivey is just our version of Joe Biden.
Right.
And it was a pretty pointed assertion that Kay Ivey wasn't really running the show. And I knew where I was writing that, the platform I was writing that on. And I knew that I would probably upset a lot of conservatives that were not only readers, but also maybe contributors and also, people that, spent money advertising. Never said a word. As a matter of fact, the only thing I got with thumbs up, because that is, right? Because that's the idea, is that you want a robust discussion, differing ideas. That's what makes this country great.
Yeah, you don't just want to
echo
Republican
chamber
talking points or whatever. That because we know them. We've heard them all our careers, right? We know what they say about taxes or whatever, or regulations. We know the standard Republican talking point. And I'm not saying you just go be provocative for the sake of being provocative, but sometimes you have to throw an inside pitch to move them off the plate.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. So with that in mind, are you concerned? Let's focus on this election. Are you concerned? There's a general feeling in the fog of COVID that there was a good amount of, I say shenanigans because that's kind of an all-encompassing word. That's using the system that you're handed because of COVID to your own advantage. That's vote harvesting, which is illegal in so many states that they did it. But that's also some of the underhanded stuff that we've heard about the last 4 years. Are you concerned as much about that in 2024?
Not as much. I mean, I still think it will go on, but I think the places it will go on, it's just they're going to go blue anyway. I think the states like what Georgia did, what they lost the All-Star game for, tightens that up a little bit. I think people are more aware. And if you talk to these people that work at the Republican National Committee, they've lawyered up. They didn't lawyer up in 2020. They're much better and on their game this time. Look, they cheated in 2020, and they just barely won that thing. Mm-hmm. The election's on Tuesday. They don't call it till Saturday. And, Trump has all this stuff going against him, and yet they just still barely pull it off. And I said, after that election, I said, they're not going to be able to do this ever again the way the Democrats won that election. They've got to, do better next time. And then they obviously they haven't. But I think these state legislatures and just the Republican machinery is finally in work. They put things in place here to keep that from ever happening again.
The events over the weekend, I think, are very indicative of where we are from an internal polling perspective and where they see the battleground states breaking. Because it feels like, your thought on it, it feels like there's an increasing desperation that, but if you're, it's that old scene from Spinal Tap. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie This is Spinal Tap, where the guy's talking about his amplifier and he says, this one goes to 11. And the guy's like, well, what do you mean it goes to 11? Well, it's louder, isn't it? Normal amps go to 10. This one goes to 11. And the guy's like, why don't you just make 10 louder? And there's a long pause. He goes, no, this goes to 11. And I've said that the media and the Democrats have been at an 11 with Donald Trump for 3 years. They've got no place to go.
Yes, and I think this is an important point because I think America at large is spent on this hysteria. And that's why I think if this comes and goes and Trump proves to be victorious, you're not going to have the level of outrage you had because they have totally depleted that account. People are just tired of being outraged about what, this Trump guy? I got to move on with my life, guys. Y'all spun me into this craziness for too long now. And I think the public, it's just sort of, it's indicative of talking about blue areas in their early voting behavior. It looks like there's no enthusiasm there. I just don't think there's going to be the quote unquote enthusiasm there for another riot, and there'll be some of that, but it's not going to be as big as a lot of people might expect.
And we were talking on your show earlier today, and I want to introduce it to this. I mean, what does Kamala Harris believe in? I mean, we've got 8 days to go before the election, and outside of abortion on demand, I can't tell you a thing that she believes in, that I think she truly believes in, that she's not waffled on at some point during her public life and public career. And she's not, so if you have not defined yourself with 8 days to go before an election, and I'm trying to look at this as objectively, I know I'm subjective, but objectively, I can't find things that she believes in, because I can find you an instance where she said the other thing at some point along the line.
I think it's the strategists have said, look, none of that matters. You just kill time, be a warm body. You're going to get elected because Trump is so bad. He is so bad, people will come out to vote against him. They're going to be wrong. I mean, it's going to be what has happened. And I think, Trump is still out there doing things. I don't think he's quite as in your face as he's been in the past. And what that's going to do, guys, is it's going to create this election. I think is going to be a referendum on the status quo.
How do you think Vance has done as a running mate?
really well. I mean, he's doing the blocking and tackling that probably you couldn't put Trump in. You watch him on these Sunday shows. He's cool, collected. He doesn't, he responds in a measured tone, but he does kind of put these media talking heads on their heels.
You mentioned the rally over the weekend, described by Democrats as it is amazing. I mean, think about this stretch, guys. And I don't think we've talked about it since it happened, but Jeff referred to it. That Donald Trump wants to have a rally in Madison Square Garden in New York City. It's an obvious place to go. It's a facility that has been used for anything from boxing matches to basketball games to political rallies to anybody that holds an event in New York City, you're going to go to the Madison Square Gardens or one of the other 2 or 3 places. And because he's in New York City, and because the left has decided that he's a fascist, they're going to say, "Oh, he's doing this because of Adolf Hitler."
I'm like, what? How many? There's been 4 Democrat national conventions at Madison Square Garden since Hitler.
Adolf Hitler. Right? So anybody that's a politician that goes it's
well,
just.
We were talking about this on my Breitbart call this morning. We're going to the Knicks defeated the Celtics last night at Madison Square Garden, where Hitler or Nazis once held a rally. I mean, you can't. People are not going to fall for that. That is laziness. If you're a Democrat strategist and you have people listen to this show, that is one of the laziest things you've ever done.
I mean, because now when I don't even know that people who scream fascist. At least the people that would resort to the racist card. I mean, racist is an easily definable term, right? You believe in the genetic superiority of one or another. You're bigot against people of color or whatever.
Right.
I don't think they know what they're talking about when they scream fascist. Do you think that little of our Constitution? I posed this to the audience last week. Even if I give you that ground, even if I cede to you, yes, you're right. Trump's a fascist. Trump wants to be a dictator. How does he do that? Just walk me through how that happened. He becomes president, then how does he become a dictator?
He just tells the military to go sack the Capitol. And
they won't do it.
Then we'll get to court right after that.
They won't do it. Right?
That's not going to happen, yeah.
Right? And you would have to have the Congress of the United States of America say, "Hey, we don't want to be an equal branch of government anymore. Take it away, executive branch." He couldn't do it if he wanted to.
They're calling half the country fascist or fascist supporters, right. and that doesn't help their brand either. If you thought you could maybe move some of those votes, you're never going to be able to.
All right, so I got a lot of people responding to our conversation, but one in particular, I just need to make sure. Our good friend, the late, great Phil Valentine used to call these Van Gogh listeners. God bless you. I'm not knocking on you, but 5163 says, he said no shenanigans. What's this guy smoking? You didn't say no shenanigans.
It's harder to pull it off this time around.
Right.
There will still be shenanigans, no doubt about it. But there's so much transparency built into the system now. Like I said, these state legislatures, and now you have an RNC that's lawyered up. It's going to make it very difficult for them to cheat the way they may have in 2020.
Laura Trump is so important in all of this, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know. I think Ronna McDaniel thought she tried to play above it.
Yeah,
or whatever. She was so squishy. And Laura Trump's all in that as Trump goes, so goes the Republican Party, one and the same.
Yeah, so understand that the RNC has to play a role here. Now, in 2020, when he was in this circumstance and he thought he could challenge it in the courts, big law firms that would typically associate themselves with election law and take the Trump's case were blackballed. They were told if you take his money, you'll never get another dime in this town. And that really, really hurt him.
I believe it's in the minute or so that we have left. I believe it's all about Pennsylvania. I mean, I understand that Georgia and North Carolina and Michigan and Wisconsin. I mean, I think all of those states matter. But I think if you see Pennsylvania go solidly Trump, it's going to be a really, really good night for Republicans.
Yeah, and just watching turnout early in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia is going to be, it doesn't appear to be there's much enthusiasm there at all.
Right. Well, Jeff, we love you. I encourage people to go to 1819 News and check out what you're doing in Alabama. I think you're doing great work down there and great work in Mobile, and I appreciate you stopping by, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
There's Jeff Poore, everybody. It's 50 after the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I don't know what to do with that. One good looking. I mean, look at these locks.
I wrote that.
You wrote that spot. You wrote that promo?
Yeah.
You did it. You did that just because you knew, didn't you? You jerk. Yeah, I'll deal with you in a minute after our guest leaves. Efficient heating and after I talk about Jeff Eddy and efficient heating and cooling. You know, it can be hard to find a local guy that you can trust to do the right thing every time, and I found that person in Jeff Eddy and efficient heating and cooling. Look, Jeff Eddy does not design himself to be the biggest heating and air conditioning company around. He's not. They're bigger, but they have big overhead, and they have bigger prices as well. Jeff Eddy keeps his invoices low. He keeps his overhead down. He never charges you overtime rates on the nights or weekends that you might have something happen to your heater or your AC. Right now, it is heating maintenance season, and for less than $125, he will come out to your home and he'll maintenance your heater. He guarantees that no matter how many heaters you might have, no matter how many units you might have at your residence, he's going to service those for $125, and oftentimes it is much less than that, depending on the size of the project. Jeff Eddy keeps that overhead down, but the bottom line is this. There are times where he has to deliver the bad news that you need a new unit. When he does, you know you can trust him, and they're an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. Go to efficienthvac.net for more information. That's efficienthvac.net, or call 615-784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient.
Kamala Harris pouncing on what that comedian said at former President Trump's rally last night. I'll let you hear some of that at 2 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. It is 58 after the hour. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Bob's in Lebanon. He's been holding. Bob, what's going on, brother?
Hey, Matt, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Hey, everybody's asking, what's the biggest difference between Trump and Kamala, right? Let's talk about...
Is everybody... Who's asking that?
I think that's, in general, that's what's been going on.
What,
okay. you can't get an answer about anything from Kamala. Like, what does she believe in, right?
Right, sure.
We're Trump. So let's talk. Trump is a leader. He sets the tone. I want to close the border. I want to lower energy costs. He doesn't necessarily say how he's going to do it. That's a leader. He sets the tone. He sets the culture. People follow leaders. Kamala's a manager. She wants everybody in a room to say, well, let's talk about this. Kamala could be working for Trump to say, okay, team, if we want to close the border, how are we going to do it? She wants to coalesce everybody in a room to say, how do we do it? That's why she's a manager. You don't want a manager to lead the country. You want a leader. That's the difference.
Well, and I don't, and I understand what you're saying, Bob, and I don't disagree with it. Kamala Harris doesn't really have the courage of her own personal convictions in order to step out and say, this is what I believe and this is the way we're going to do it. When she made this ridiculous comment during the CNN quote unquote town hall where she was saying, if one of my bigger weaknesses is that I listen too much. I mean, that's basically what she said. Oh, what's your way? I listen too much. I care too much. But she said, I listen to everybody in the room and I gather that together and I think about it and I think it's a strength, but she doesn't have the courage of her core convictions. She doesn't know who she's talking to, so she doesn't know what she believes. Say what you will about Trump. Trump believes what he believes, for better or worse for many people. He is a leader from the moment he steps into that role. She is not. So, yeah, game manager, sure. I'll take that. One more hour to go, man. They have flown by on Super Talk 99.7 WT. And here comes Ken Weaver with the news, and we'll get into more on the presidential election and beyond. That's up next. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Two o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and we've got some traffic problems. Still seeing this stalled tractor trailer blocking the off-ramp right lane, 40 westbound, to go westbound on I-24 downtown. Now I see a crash that is at Representative John Lewis Way and Korean Veterans Boulevard. Full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Election 2024, Vice President Kamala Harris, before boarding a plane to Michigan, commented on a comedian at former President Trump's New York rally last night who made jokes about Latinos, quote, loving making babies and calling Puerto Rico, quote, a floating island of garbage.
I'm very proud to have the support of folks like Bad Bunny and Jennifer Lopez and others who were supporting me before that nonsense last night at Madison Square Garden, and are supporting me because they understand that they want a president of the United States who's about uplifting the people.
Yeah, we're going to hear more from former President Trump today. He's in Georgia speaking to faith leaders. Then he'll hold a rally tonight in Atlanta. Right now in Memphis, Channel 4 says the man accused of killing jogger Eliza Fletcher has pleaded guilty to the charges in the case. Cleotha Henderson is accused of kidnapping, then murdering the mother and kindergarten teacher while she was out for an early morning jog on September of 2022. Her body was found a few days later. There's a nationwide search for a man accused of killing a hiker in Far East Tennessee's Monroe County. Nicholas Wayne Hamlet's accused of using a fake name to report a hiker in distress in the Tellico Plains 2 Fridays ago. Now he's on the run, considered armed and dangerous. They say he has ties to Kentucky, Florida, Alaska, and Montana. Folks in East Nashville hoping police make an arrest soon in the beating death of a man 2 weeks ago at 5th and Russell Streets. This man telling Channel 4.
I walk around here a lot with my dog, and I've never had anything happen to me. I've never seen anything crazy like that. It's tough to lose somebody like that. I've never been threatened or anything, so I feel like I'm generally pretty safe. I walk during the daylight hours. But yeah, I'm concerned for other people living nearby.
Police say surveillance cameras caught a man attacking 59-year-old James Sutton, who suffered serious head and spinal cord injuries and later died. And if you're trying to plan a Thanksgiving feast without breaking the bank, there are ways you can save. Retailers are duking it out early this year to get a slice of your spending on Thanksgiving dinner. Here's Elizabeth Schulze.
Grocers are rolling back prices to compete with shoppers who are on a budget. Walmart is promoting a so-called inflation-free Thanksgiving, 29 items to feed 8 people for under $7 a person. Sam's Club members meal feeds 10 at about $10 a person, and it can be delivered to your house pre-cooked, so it only takes 2 hours to heat up. And Aldi is offering its lowest prices since 2019, a meal for 10, including a butterball turkey, at just under $5 per person.
That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
I think it should be cold on Halloween and maybe a little rainy on Halloween. I wouldn't mind any of that. Prepare for the possibility that I might sneeze during this commercial advertisement. I'm just warning you. Defense says that it's a proof of life that it's actually live. Defense Systems is a life safety and security consultation firm based right here in Middle Tennessee. They help prepare you for the unexpected, like a sneeze or something even worse. Now, God forbid you have any workplace violence at your place of work. And certainly no one would wish this at a school or at a church or any other place for that matter, but it does happen on a daily basis. Are you ready? Are you prepared for it? Do you know? Defense Systems can help you. They are a active shooter response training facility. They work with workplace violence prevention. They also do site surveys and threat assessment at your facility. They're a security consultation firm, and they offer rapid response medical training and emergency and intruder action plans, all customized to your facility. The bottom line is this. They understand that the possibility of something like this happening in your workplace, your school, your business is low, low, low. But it's not zero. That means hope is not a plan. It's time to get trained with Defense Systems. Go to defensesystems.com or 615-236-6484. 236-6484. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We enter hour number 3. It feels like we just got here. Things are flying by. This is the way the week is going to go, friends. I can predict that to you. We are going 100 miles an hour to Tuesday, November 5th, and excited that we are almost there. One more Tuesday to go before we're in the final home stretch, the final week. 8 days to go. And we've got a lot to get to in this last hour of our show. 615- No, it's
sorry,
not.
it's not going that fast.
No, it's not. Ugh. That, you know what? That's even worse on a Monday. That's just awful.
Tuesday Eve.
That's right. You know what it is? It's Tuesday Eve. Why don't you just have one of them? You don't get me upset Why don't you just have one of them for every day of the week? It's Tuesday Eve, it's Wednesday Eve, it's Thursday Eve, it's Friday Eve. Puppy died. Remember, friends, Bell K plays those clips, and you can say anything you want. It's a free country. You can talk about it being Friday Eve till the cows come home, but know this. Every time you say it, a puppy dies. That's true. 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986, either via text or telephone call. So we warned you all along that things would get utterly ridiculous amongst the mainstream media. We warned you all along on the Matt Murphy Show, and I'm not playing a game of Murphy was right. I could, but I'm not. I'm not. Nope, I'm not. Don't do it. All right, do it a little. Murphy was right. I'm just saying, but I ain't saying. Just saying. When Donald Trump almost had his brains blown out, and I say it that way almost every time because I think it's important to say it that way. I think it's important to remind the American people that a presidential candidate in 2024 was millimeters away from, on live television, having his brains blown out. When's the last time you heard about this on mainstream media? When's the last time you were reminded on CNN or ABC or CBS or NBC or in the Washington Post or the New York Times? When's the last time they reminded their listeners or their readers that we need to tone down the political rhetoric because people have already had assassination attempts against their life? Do you think the standard would be the same if it was Kamala Harris or Joe Biden? They want you to forget. They want you to forget that a leftist that you don't hear anything else about attempted to take the head off of Donald Trump with a rifle and almost succeeded because of the incompetency, because of the ridiculous incompetency, or worse, amongst the general population. Rather, amongst the Secret Service population. Sorry, I got a little confused about what's going on around me. We told you all along that it would get here. And we've gotten here. They were never being honest when they told you that it was time to tone down the rhetoric. They just wanted you to tone down the rhetoric. They wanted me to tone down our rhetoric. And once Kamala Harris replaced Joe Biden, which was obviously certain after the disastrous debate performance, just remember, I just want to reset and remember where we came from in May. We were told that Joe Biden was underperforming and that Joe Biden had lost so much of a step or two or 8 or 6 that he could not possibly perform in the summer months leading up to the presidential election, leading up to his own political convention. And because of this, he had to be removed. Now, this is the same guy that they protected. This is the same guy that they refused to allow anybody to compete against. They wouldn't allow Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to do it. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. rode the independent train for a while until such time as he flipped over to Trump, which is a huge get. And he wants to make America healthy again. And boy, oh boy, has he not been an integral part of that campaign since then. Why do you think the June 27th debate happened to begin with? The June 27th debate happened because they wanted to test Biden. Either they knew how he would not perform or they didn't. But they wanted to know, and they had their answer after that day. And then Donald Trump almost lost his head. Literally, almost lost his mind. And the mainstream media said, oh, we need to tone down the rhetoric. We need to tone it down. And when Kamala Harris ascended to the throne after Joe Biden said he wouldn't be running anymore, oh, we need to tone it down, tone it down. What about that tone now? The insane, desperately ridiculous language being used by the political left. I don't even think they know what they mean. Donald Trump wants to be like Hitler. What are you talking about? I defy any of you, and I will give you carte blanche on this radio show at any point that you want to call. I'll set up any interview with any liberal that wants to explain to me exactly how Donald Trump would go about being a fascist, even if he wanted to be. He left office the last time, or he didn't want to, Matt. He left. How do you know he didn't want to? You're not inside of his head. All of this call for a rhetoric shift after the assassination attempt, all of it was nonsense. It was performative. Because look at what they're saying now. They're calling him a threat. If you want to know how desperate they've gotten, Charlemagne, the content creator that had hosted Kamala Harris at some point, Charlemagne had something of a face-off with Anderson Cooper. And I'm not going to annoy you by playing you the audio, but I'll give you the synopsis. Charlemagne says that no media... Now, listen to this now. Saying this to Anderson Cooper, who is an avowed anti-Trumper, a never-Trumper, obviously. Charlemagne says that CNN has not been hard enough on Trump. That they've not gone after Trump enough. Said Americans need to keep looking at the rhetoric of Donald Trump because I don't know why we're even thinking about electing somebody who's talking about putting people in camps. He's not really what he said. That's why we want to elect somebody who's talking about mass deportation. Well, if you're here illegally, you are individually deported, and if there's a lot of you, that's mass deportation. Then ask someone who's all against mass deportation what they want to do with people that come into our country illegally. So is their stand now that if you get here, you get to stay here regardless of who you are or where you're coming from? What is your position on the issue, liberals? Explain to me if you find what definition are you using for mass deportation? So, Charlemagne, I would ask you this question. So, if 20 gangbangers from Mexico get across the southern border and take up residence in your hometown, and they are known to be gang members, they're with this new Tre Liagua or whatever the hell it is, or MS-13 or whatever gang we might be talking about. They are known thugs and gang members that want to do devastation to your community. Charlemagne, they came here illegally. What do you do with them? Do you let them stay? Because they said the word asylum, sir. Do you let them stay? Like, are you people making any sense anymore? Like, legit question. What do you do? And if there's 20 of them, and you say, rightly, well, they need to go back on home. They don't need to be here to begin with. They came here without the proper paperwork or documentation. They are, by definition, illegally in the country. Well, there's 20 of them, Charlemagne. You can't have mass deportation. Oh, mass deportation. Well, when you allow people to come into the country en masse illegally, how the hell are you going to follow the law as a result of their mass introduction into our system? There needs to be a mass exodus, but you do that on a case-by-case basis. There is no such thing. My point is this. There is no such thing as mass deportation. Deportation happens on an individual basis, just like there's no such thing as mass incarceration. They were using this garbage language 4 years ago. We have to stop mass incarceration of black people. That was the 2020 lingo. Y'all remember that? I do. I'm elephantine about this stuff. I remember. I never forget it. In 2020, after the summer of love, after all of the George Floyd nonsense, we were told, we must end the mass incarceration of black people. What are you talking about? People are incarcerated in the United States of America based on breaking the law in local communities in state or federal court. And they are adjudicated, they are judged by a jury of their peers. and it is decided their guilt or innocence. They are then sentenced by a judge in good standing following the rule of law. There is not a single instance in the United States of America where people have been mass incarcerated. Ever.
We got to stop the mass incarceration. We have to stop the mass deportation.
All of this is designed to use language to create a subterfuge, to confuse people, to make people get all up in their feels, because that's where Democrats live and breathe. They live in the feels, man.
Well, I don't like the idea of mass incarceration. That feels like concentration camps. I don't like the idea of the words mass deportation, because that feels like we're rounding people up and putting them on cattle cars.
That's what it is. That's all it is.
I'm loving the voice, though.
And so Charlemagne's on with Anderson Cooper, and he's like, y'all haven't done enough to tell us how awful Donald... Like, what more can they possibly do? Charlemagne, I don't think a network has had an honest conversation about Donald Trump. Nobody's had an honest conversation since 2016. I saw last night they were talking about the double standard that exists between Trump and the vice president. There's always been a double standard with Trump, whether it's Hillary or Biden, now with Kamala. We talk about him being a threat to democracy, but we don't treat him like one. Now, that's the phrase that I want to focus on. We talk about him being a threat to democracy, but we don't treat him like one. That sounds like a threat against Donald Trump, doesn't it? What else is that? How are you supposed to treat a threat to democracy in a manner in which Charlemagne would feel good about it? You destroy that threat, don't you? How do you treat a threat? It almost sounds as if Charlemagne wants to see another assassination attempt, but I wouldn't put that on him. That would be assuming too much. These Democrats don't want that. You know who gets it? Believe it or not, Van Jones gets it. Van Jones is as much of a Trump hater as the next guy, but he understands that this final week, this final message, this final pitch to the American voter, it ain't working because it's toxic.
If progressives have a politics that says all white people are racist, all men are toxic, and all billionaires are evil, it's kind of hard to keep them on your side. And so we might want to think about, if you're chasing people out of the party, you can't be mad when they leave. And maybe if we had a different politics, we actually said dignity for everybody, everybody's respected, and we need you, more people might stay.
He's exactly right. When you tell me you don't want me at your club, then I'm going to leave the club. And apparently Democrats don't want white men anymore, because you're all racist and evil. And if you think about voting for Donald Trump, you're a fascist. Not that any of them know what that means. 22 after the, almost 21 after the hour, that is, on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You know, sadly, we are funding America's future in a way that we don't want. It's not the future that I want for you or your children. Most major credit card companies funnel millions of dollars to liberal causes and candidates, hoping that you don't take notice. Well, we've taken notice, and I have an alternative for you. Take a stand and get the woke out of your wallet with Coin. It is the conservative credit card. You earn cash back while advancing a conservative future. You can apply now at coin.com. Now, that is spelled COIGN.com. COIGN.com. Terms apply. Go to coin.com/disclosures for full details and tell them Matt Murphy sent you.
It started with someone telling people to quiet down in the parking lot. It ended with someone pulling out a machete. We'll tell you about it at 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I love your teases, man.
Yeah, this went awry real fast.
Oh, yeah. When they're yanking out of the machetes, things have gone awry. That's well said, Ken Weaver. And I cannot wait till that newscast coming up in just a couple of minutes. Ken Weaver, this morning, I loved your story about was it the Target that's offering the $20 Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah, Target says it's got a Thanksgiving meal for 4 for $20.
And I can't even go to the convenience store and get out of there with less than $20. How in the world is that
jumped
happen?
with Mason. Instead of a turkey, they're giving out a pigeon.
Oh, that's, just one of the wings per kid, and you're fine.
Yeah.
Sure.
A little game hen.
Oh, it was a great newscast. You were like, $20 for 4 people.
Sign me up.
That's the news. I guess. Well, look, hey, an inflation buster come around Thanksgiving.
Well, and you can also exclude family members you don't like. We've only got enough for 4. Now scream.
That's true. 615-737-9986. Love hearing from the listening audience, even you liberals out there in the audience. 8715 says, cry me a river, Matt. A Republican tried to kill Trump. Allegedly, if you believe the optics. Okay, so 8715, you believe that that kid was a Republican. That's what you believe. That because his father was a Republican and because he voted at one point in a Republican primary, you think it was a conservative-minded individual that went up and got up on that roof and decided they were going to blow Donald Trump's brains out because why? Because he was a conservative and Trump's not conservative enough? Is that your argument, 8715? Because you sound like a frickin' moron.
If that carried any water at all, that story would still be in the news.
They still talking about it. Okay, so I ain't mad, bro. But 8715 says that's what you're mad about. You thought you had this in the bag, and then Kamala came along and jumped out ahead and stayed there. I ain't mad, bro. I always talk like this. And 8715 says, I listen regularly. The station is obviously scared by what happened to Sunday at the rally from hell. Nobody is saying it, but it's palpable. Okay. I'll tell you what, 8715, if you're a gambling man, you just tell me what you want to put on it. I'm happy. I'm happy to do that. Whatever you want to put on it.
Because you are a gambling man.
Because I am a gambling man. And I believe in America. I believe in this country. I believe in the freedoms and liberties that our founding fathers guaranteed us. I don't believe that we want to go down the road of socialism. I don't believe in price controls like Kamala Harris. I don't believe in fracking bans like Kamala Harris. I don't believe that big business is evil like Kamala Harris. I don't believe that all white men are fascist like Kamala Harris. I don't believe that energy is bad and natural and national production of energy is bad like Kamala Harris. I don't believe in open borders like Kamala Harris. Do you? As a matter of fact, what do you believe that Kamala Harris believes in? Because I can't figure it out. It changes from day to day. No, just tell me. It's not about socialism, although that's what she is. Tell me what she believes in. Tell me what she wants to do. Tell me what she wants to do on day one. Does she want a wall or not? She's running political advertisements in Arizona where she's touting building more border wall and that Trump failed. Well, I thought border wall bad. Does she want a border wall or not? Are we going to deport illegal aliens or not? These are legitimate questions, 8715. What are you voting for? Do you even know? Does your hatred of Donald Trump carry you to the polls? Or do you believe in something? Oh, that's exactly right. You can't, and this is the one thing. 8715 answered me. He's listening or she's listening. Probably codify women's reproductive rights. Women have reproductive rights, Chief. There is not a single law in the United States of America that prevent a grown woman from getting pregnant. Isn't that what we're talking about? Reproductive rights, the right to reproduce. That's what reproductive rights mean. What you're talking about is the right to destroy the reproductive possibilities inside of a woman. You want that ability, and that's fine. That's fine. I'm willing to have that conversation with you because Kamala Harris cannot define when she wants those rights to end because there has to be a stopping point somewhere. At birth, I suppose. But you're right. That's the only thing that she's been clear about, as far as I can tell, that she believes in abortion until birth. Kamala Harris believes in aborting children inside the womb until the moment of birth. But it was good talking to you, 8715. Call me if you want to. I'd love to have a conversation with you. I'll even let you talk. James wants to know if the person with the machete was illegal or legal. I don't know the answer to that question, but I know who does. Well, I don't know if he knows the answer to that question, but he's got all the details that we currently have, and that's coming up right now on Super Talk.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Election 2024. Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance in battleground Wisconsin today.
We've got all the joy and we're having all the fun on the Donald J. Trump team, and that's a thing to be proud of. But we're also talking about some very serious business for the United States of America. I, for one, would like to raise my children in a country that is not flooded with 25 million illegal aliens.
And you've got the Democratic vice presidential nominee, Tim Walz, in Wisconsin, too.
Well, the biggest guardrail is left, the American public, the ability to go cast your vote, the ability to not just vote against Donald Trump, which I'm just going to say will be pleasurable, but you're voting for something. You're voting for a leader who's been proven.
Here in Nashville, police say a fight at the Nob Hill apartment complex on Saturday afternoon ended with one person having their hand cut off. 2 cars were totaled. Channel 4 says they were told by witnesses it started when someone told people partying in the parking lot to quiet down. That angered the group. There was a fight with someone pulling out a machete, cutting a man's hand off. Then somebody ramming 2 vehicles with their vehicle. Police still investigating. No update on the condition of the victim or whether or not the guy with the machete was legal or not. And look what's back on the menu at hundreds of McDonald's. Alex Stone.
Now that the beef has officially been ruled out as a source of the E. coli and the onions that came from a Colorado facility of California-based Taylor Farms was the culprit, McDonald's says it is bringing back the Quarter Pounder in those areas. It lost it last week, but in those areas that were impacted by E. coli, Quarter Pounders won't have slivered onions on them for the time being. And McDonald's says it will no longer source onions from that Colorado Springs processing plant.
That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey, friends, Matt Murphy here. What would you do if I told you the pain that you experience could be gone? You know, many of us through our lives, we have back pain or neck pain, knee pain, hip pain, elbow pain. Imagine the freedom and the possibilities if I were to tell you that that pain is over. You don't have to deal with it anymore. What would you do with your life? At the Dr. Gill Center, they have helped thousands of people just like you get out of pain over the last 30 years, and they can help you too. With over 60 years of combined experience, Dr. Gill, Dr. Wendy, Dr. Dominic, Dr. V, and the rest of the crew at the Dr. Gill Center, it's a team approach. They have the knowledge and compassion to help make you pain-free without needing to pop pills, without the need for surgery, and without the need for pain blockers like needles. Take it from me, you know, I'm not just a spokesperson for the Dr. Gill Center, but I'm also a client. I have lower back issues, and Dr. Gill alleviates those lower back issues through his spinal decompression. You could be next. Call them today at 615-882-4838 or visit callmepainfree.com. That's callmepainfree.com. Let's work together to make your pain-free life a reality. 615-882-4838. 4838. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you getting you your calls momentarily. Man, oh man, winding down the day already. We'll check in with Brian Wilson, see how his high school reunion was over the weekend, coming up in just a couple of minutes on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A couple of notes. I need to backtrack on one thing, and I need to ask Ken Weaver a question on another thing, if he's back there. So the one thing, I agree with several of you, a couple of you have noted, 9,300 made the note, and there was one other individual that noted it as well. When I said that we don't mass incarcerate people in the United States of America, there's a couple of exceptions, and they were both during wartime. I think there was some mass incarceration during World War I. There was more robust mass incarceration during World War II. Due to wartime, there was a belief that Japanese Americans at that time would find allegiance with the Japanese. Wrongly, those Japanese Americans, without committing any acts of violence and without really committing any overt act against the United States of America, were considered enemies of the state, and there were mass incarcerations in camps. So I should note that is the exception, by the United States government.
By a Democrat.
By a Democrat, FDR. Yes. So, and I think Woodrow Wilson was the other Democrat that did it from Italian Americans.
Oh, that's all you need is icing on top of his rotten cake.
Best thing to ever happen to him was that stroke. Is that wrong?
Best thing to happen to America was that stroke.
Too soon? Okay. So that is duly noted, the exception that ultimately proves the rule. Two quick personal notes. But before I get to this personal notes, though, Ken Weaver, you back there? Weaver back there?
I'm here, Brother Murphy.
Ken Weaver, I heard your story about the Machete Man, and we have any word on his legal status, but here's my question for you.
Yes, sir.
And I'm not kidding. Okay. It sounds like a joke, but I'm not joking.
Okay.
Is that a behanding? Is that officially? I mean, if he cut off his head, it would be a beheading.
I don't know what that's called. I don't know if that is a behanding. Let me look at it.
A behanding. But my goodness gracious. That is let me tell you something. If I'm in an altercation and I find myself in a verbal fight or even a fist fight and someone whoops out a machete, you've won the fight. And I'm going to do whatever it is that you need me to do to de-escalate the situation. But sadly, that is not what happened.
I'm curious if they tried to reattach his hand or if they were able to.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, I think you can do that now, right?
Yeah.
If it's clean and you get it to the. My stepfather cut his finger off processing a deer one time and drove to the hospital without a middle finger.
Well, then how the hell is he able to drive?
He bandaged. He wouldn't let me drive. I was like 10.
Well, if you got no middle finger to stick out the window, how are you going to drive?
Well, I mean, carefully, and you use your blinker because you don't want to get into those altercations that might necessitate the use of a middle finger.
Yeah, it was an I-24.
It was a maiming. I referred to it over the weekend as a behanding. I'm not trying to beclown the situation, but that's what I think it is. But my goodness gracious, cutting somebody's hand off that thing.
Yeah, it was apparently quite the scene.
I bet.
Yeah, apparently from what I gathered, there was a big party out in the parking lot of this apartment complex. Somebody had to go to work, asked them to quiet down. For some reason, that led to a big fight. Some person got in a car and rammed a couple of parked cars. And then the guy getting his hand cut off with the machete. Police aren't really sure. I think they're still trying to put it all together. The transcript of the thing that I saw on Channel 4 is the witnesses they were talking to. They had to have a translator help them translate what the witnesses were saying.
My goodness.
I am relatively certain that if you dig into this story, there was no alcohol involved at all.
Oh, no. I can't imagine that there would have been alcohol involved in any of this.
Yeah, just folks out partying in the parking lot.
Just having a normal Sunday afternoon or weekend afternoon, just normal day. No alcohol whatsoever. No drunk people involved. No, man, oh man. But when you feel necessary to whip out the machete, things have escalated considerably. Hey, I want to thank real quick and just a side note, a personal note. I want to thank Saturday. I got a chance. I've not handled a 12 gauge in a long time, and I went up to Paris, Tennessee on Saturday to visit a company that might be advertising with us down the road called Branching Out Game Birds, which is a pretty cool operation. They're a pheasant hunt operation, so they can take you or your buddies or your coworkers out on a pheasant hunt for the morning or afternoon or entire day. It's a pretty cool operation. I'm holding up their little coffee mug that Scott gave me over the weekend. I got myself a pheasant. Actually, and I hadn't shot a 12 gauge in a long time, and I was always horrible. I told Scott, I've never been good shooting birds, never been good shooting shotguns.
So he actually took you on a hunt.
Yeah, we went on a hunt,
and you got yourself a pheasant.
Yeah, I did.
Well, I'm proud of you.
Well, thank you. I won't tell you that I shot. I probably shot 18. Yeah, there was. There was probably 8 or 9.
Completely unnecessary to add that element to the story.
Well, whatever. But I got you. I got one.
1 kill.
1 shot, 1 kill. Sure. Let's go with that. But anyway, thanks to the good people, Scott, Linda, and the rest of the crew up at Branching Out. They're good folks up there, and hopefully you'll be hearing more about those guys very soon. Another point of order. I said last week on the show, we got a call from Mr. Jimmy. He seemed down. He's got a pacemaker operation that's happening this Thursday, October 31st. And I went to visit Mr. Jimmy in Shelbyville. You can go to my X page at Matt Murphy Show. You can also find it on either of my Facebook pages. I put up some pictures of Mr. Jimmy and myself. He was kind enough. He gave me a belt buckle, a Harley-Davidson belt buckle that he got in 1978. I know. I told him, don't give me this belt buckle. He said, no, I want you to have it. And he was so kind to do that. But I got a chance to meet Mr. Jimmy, Mr. Jimmy's daughter, and a good friend of the family there. They were with him. And we had some good conversations, spent about an hour together. It was so nice to get to put a face to Mr. Jimmy's voice. He's a good guy. I just wanted to pick him up. His spirits seemed low last week, and we got a chance to go out to Shelbyville and meet him, and it was a wonderful trip. And I appreciate Mr. Jimmy having us. It was an honor to get to sit down and say hello to him and visit with him a little bit. And we wish him the best with his pacemaker surgery this Thursday. I told Mr. Jimmy that I didn't want him going as a ghost on Halloween. And I think he got a kick out of that. So we'll be thinking about him. And I I got him to promise that he would call us before Thursday. So at some point, he'll give us a call. Matt is in Nashville with a thought on Kamala Harris before we have to get out of here. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How you doing? Just a quick thing. I didn't know it was possible for somebody to flip-flop more than John Kerry to Kamala Harris for a while. Because I swear to God, I mean, if you put her, you put John Kerry and Hillary Clinton and have love child together, you get Tim Walz.
Matt.
And
Matt.
Yeah.
Can you, and I'm not trying to be rude, but I can't understand you. Can you take your mouth and pull it a little bit away from your phone and start over? I couldn't understand you. It was kind of distorted. Are you there?
Is this better?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good. So tell me about Kamala again. Go again.
I didn't know it was possible for somebody to flip-flop more than John Kerry until Kamala Harris came along.
That's good, yeah.
And then again, if you have John Kerry and Hillary Clinton have a love child, you get Tim Walz and Kamala Harris together. So I'm surprised John Kerry didn't pick Clinton to run as his running mate. Because, I mean, it's pretty much what we're looking at.
No, I mean, I remember, look, I'm old enough to remember, and thank you, Matt. No, you're right. John Kerry was Mr. Flip-Flop. And it's where we started hearing the term waffling, which has always annoyed me because you don't flip a waffle. You put a waffle in a waffle iron and it cooks on both sides. You flip a pancake, but I digress. Now, I'm John Kerry reporting for duty. Remember all that? Yeah, it was nonsense. But, Kamala Harris is not getting called out on it in the manner that John Kerry was. We just have to figure these things out for ourselves. 9513 said, did you handle the shotgun better than Walz? Yes, I did. It was an over-under. It was a Beretta over-under, the most expensive shotgun I've ever held in my life.
How much?
That Beretta is probably $2,500 at least. That is a fine gun. And I told Scott at the end of the hunt, I said, I would have hit all those birds if I'd have had my Mossberg. And he's like, are you blaming the gun? I was like, yeah. He's like, I don't think you can blame. I was laughing. I was like, no, I don't think I can blame the gun. Lisa's in McMinnville. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Matt. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for calling.
Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to make a quick comment on abortion. That is just an excuse, and they're using it as a form of birth control. And I hear women say, oh, it's my life, my body, my choice. Babies do not choose to die. There's lots of ways to prevent pregnancy in the first place, and this is just an excuse to murder. And that's just what I wanted to comment on.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for the call. And I don't disagree with that far too often it is an unnecessary stage. Sadly, if you talk about choice and being pro-choice, I'm pro-choice. I think you can choose whether or not you want to have sex with someone. I think you can choose whether or not you want to have protected or unprotected sex with someone. I think you can choose whether or not, frankly, some might find this distasteful, but even if you make poor decisions up until the point of sexual relations, you can choose to make yourself available with the morning after pill. I mean, these are all choices that we make, but when you get to a certain point in pregnancy, or when you get to pregnancy for some, I don't, it's a little late in the show to get into this issue in depth, but we've talked about this many times, and I understand that there are differing opinions on it, but I don't understand someone that supports abortion after the 4th month of pregnancy. I can understand why someone would support that it is not the government's responsibility prior to that, but once you get into the arena of possible viability outside of the womb, I don't understand. I don't understand any of that. You've had opportunity to choose. Those opportunities should be over at that point. And if you disagree with that, then gosh, then you're okay with killing life, and that is what we'll say about that. 615. Well, no, don't give the. It's almost time to go. One more thing before we go. You've seen where the Washington Post and the LA Times have decided not to endorse. I find this to be a positive development in the world of endorsements. I've well established that I just hate them. Now, if somebody calls me up on the radio show or texts me or emails me or finds me on the X machine or whatnot, by the way, at Matt Murphy Show, somebody just asked me, at Matt Murphy Show to see those photos of Mr. Jimmy. Join us over there. I'll tell you how I'm voting. I'll tell you why I'm voting. I'm happy to offer advice, but this concept of endorsements has always been just ridiculous to me. It seems ego-driven. Well, suddenly the Washington Post has decided they don't want to endorse anyone anymore, and they're getting resignations as a result. The LA Times, same deal. Why? Because they know. They know that A, nobody cares, and B, they know what's going to happen next Tuesday. That bodes well for our side. We'll talk with Brian Wilson next. See how the high school reunion went on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. One final note before we check in with Brian. Matt Murphy's show in progress, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We mentioned the Virginia situation involving the removal of non-citizens from the voter rolls last week. A judge declared that Virginia did not have the right to do that based on a 1993 federal law. That was upheld over the weekend by an appellate court, and now the state of Virginia is saying they're taking that to the Supreme Court. It's kind of a ridiculous thing where you're not allowed to remove voters from the rolls 90 days up until an election, but you can register to vote up to 30 days before an election. There's a gap there that doesn't make a lot of sense. But we're monitoring that situation, as we are the situation with Brian Wilson and the big high school reunion. I don't want to take anything away from the beginning of the show, Brian, but inquiring minds want to know. How'd it go?
It went really well. It was a great event. About 200 people showed up. We had a class of 750 when we graduated in 1974. And this was our 50th, and it was a great event. And I just want to say thanks to a listener here on WTN by the name of Steve Hasty, who lent me a gigantic, it's a black cat head, but for my purposes, it was a panther head. And I wore it at the event. We were the Permian Panthers. So I had to show up wearing a gigantic panther head.
I think I remember. I think I was there when that deal went down.
You were right there.
I was,
and so I've been holding on to it, and now I got to get it back to him because it was a loan, not a give me. But I want to say thanks to Steve because it was a really great event. I'll talk more about it here in just a bit. Coming up, we're going to be talking about all of the latest stuff. Apparently, I over the weekend, 100,000 Nazis showed up in downtown New York City, and apparently there was nothing bad happened. Amazing.
Amazing.
So we're going to talk about that.
We look forward to having Brian back in the saddle with The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. That happens right after Ken Weaver's newscast. And Ken Weaver's newscast, I have it on good authority, is happening right now at 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Until next time, have a wonderful afternoon, folks. Hug your loved ones. So long, everybody.